Here's a question for all you brandy fans. Do you think Spanish brandy can be a good alternative to French cognac? Well, that's what we're going to be looking at in today's video. Hopefully by the end of the video, I'll be giving you a rough idea of how these Spanish brandies compare to your cognacs and your French brandies. Now, over the past few months, I have done a lot of these tastings and I've still got a hell of a long way to go, and I would never profess to be an expert or anything like that, not even remotely close. But I am now starting to form my own opinions and kind of have a decent understanding of the brandy and cognac world. Some of the brandies, cognacs that I've looked at, I started off with the Pierre Ferrand range because they very kindly donated their whole range so I could have a little deep dive on that. I then kind of have looked at the four biggest selling cognacs in the world: Hennessy, Remy, Courvoisier and Martell. I've looked at them individually as brands. I've looked at them comparing their XOs to each other. I've looked at them comparing their VSOPs against each other. I've also done French brandy, just brandy, not cognac, but brandy, and looked at one of the big brandy houses, which is Remy's sister brand. It is Remy, and I found some really, really good stuff. Now, cognac probably is rightly thought of as the leader of, of all brandies, but it really depends what you're looking for, because just in that French brandy alone, there was some really, really good stuff. For example, this for me, this Remy XO will always be a permanent stock, but what I have found, it hasn't got the maturity, it hasn't got the oomph that some of the cognacs would have. And actually, while this is an XO, I would probably compare this to a lower VSOP. For instance, in the last video, I think it was the last video I did, the Martell VSOP, which was round about £50, and this was half the price, so $60 versus $30 roughly, give or take, probably even cheaper in the US. It doesn't compare to the Martell VSOP in terms of taste, in terms of quality, but it isn't that far off, and for half the price, it's a really good stuff. And then the other cognac I want to give a notable mention to as well, because this was one of the very first ones that I tasted on this journey, and this still smashes it for me, the Pierre Ferrand Ombre. It's not this, so the 1840 is the little bit stronger version. This is there. Pierre Ferrand don't really do XOs and VSOPs, but they are quite expensive. Again, this is the same price as the Martell VSOP here in the UK. This is roughly £50. So when you're looking at French brandies and when you're looking at Spanish brandies, they are considerably cheaper. Spanish brandy, for me, has got this good reputation of being maybe as good, if not better in some people's eyes, than French cognac. But let's dive in, let's find out. Now, the brand I've picked will probably be no stranger to a lot of you brandy fans. I wanted to, doing these videos, and yes, I'm going to focus at some point on the British brandies that are here. I've got another brand down beside me at the moment I've got to do a video on, but I predominantly want to hit both the UK and the US because they are my two biggest audiences. So focusing on stuff that the US can't get is a little bit stupid. The same as focusing on stuff that the UK can't get is a little bit stupid. So I've picked Torres. These are actually quite easily get. The one funny one is I can't get a sample of the Torres 15, which is available in every single supermarket, but I didn't really want to spend £30 on a whole bottle, just in case these three might be better. So again, I have got a little sample from one of the brandy bars in London. Now, I'm doing a little bit of stalking. I found that Torres do actually have more in their range, and I did try to get hold of those. I did reach out to Torres, and they very kindly put me in touch with the UK distributor. However, I followed up 3 times with them and still heard nothing back. So we've got their core range here, but they have got kind of like a white unaged Torres brandy. They have got a spiced brandy as well. So I am really looking forward to trying those, but it won't be in this video. So let me just run you through the 4 Torres brandies that I've got here. I've got these written down. I've not got too many notes. I don't want to get too involved in how they're made. I just want to know how they taste, basically. So I've got the Torres 10, which retails here in the UK at roughly just under £18. So what, $25 maybe US. That is essentially a 10. They call it a 10, but it is more of a Solera aged brandy. Don't forget, Spanish are all well renowned for their Solera aging. So don't be put off by that at all. They do Solera it very, very well. The second one I've got, which is that one, is the Torres 15. That retails for roughly £34 here in UK. So going up to $43, $44. And that's the next step up from that, aged in American oak there. The first one's aged in American oak as well. The next one I've got, but then we're going up a huge step here. We've got the 20, which is the Hors. Forgive my pronunciation. One day I'm going to get that right. And that retails at £48. And interestingly, that's still cheaper than the Martell VSOP and still cheaper than the Pierre Ferrand Ombre as well. So that, for me, is the one I'm kind of looking at and holding out hope at, that actually that might be, because in face value, this would actually go up against maybe something like the XOs in that, but you can see the dramatic change in price there, or how much cheaper it is. And then the fourth one I've got is the 30 Jaime 1 or Jaime I, and that retails for £93 here in the UK. But and this is the thing, this has actually got a blend of cognac that was Spanish brandy that was distilled in 1972. Okay, so it's a very old blend in there. I would put this, if I was comparing like for like, I would probably put this up at much higher levels than any of those XOs from Remy, from Courvoisier, from Hennessy, from Martell. So you can kind of see that even the price is dramatically cheaper for Spanish brandy. But how do they compare in taste? Right, so I'm going to do this blind. The numbers are on the bottom. Obviously, they're going to be numbered 1, 2, 3, 4 in that order, cheapest to most expensive. So the first one, no particular order. Oh, there's a lovely vanilla-y cinnamon nose on this one. Definitely not mistaking this for brandy. It does punch out in grapes, but I'm interested. I have filmed, so the last video I filmed was a cognac, so there was no rum in between this. This smells like a very different type of... How can I describe this? This is much more concentrated grape juice, if you like. Much more, maybe even... I'm going to use this word. Maybe even more acidic grape juice compared to the cognacs that I was tasting previously. I think the only way I can kind of sum this up, what I'm kind of driving at here, is that of all the brandies that I've smelt and tasted recently, this is the closest one to a bottle of wine that I would get to. It's got that fresh acidity to it. Whereas, obviously, you know, brandy, cognac is distilled wine. It does come from wine as the base. But, you know, the rest have all been grapeified. Whereas this one is more wineified. That probably makes no sense to a lot of you. But that's how I would kind of translate it. Right, let's have a little taste. Wow. That is delicious. I'm going to go straight out on a limb here and say that's slightly longer aged. Wow, that's really good. Oh, that is really good. I like that a lot. That cinnamony, nutmeggy, vanilla-y kind of notes, they really grip your tongue there. It's quite full-bodied. Definitely comparing that to like the Remy XO, which is a little bit lighter than your standard cognacs. This really does match up to like cognac with body. I would say it's not as multi-layered as some of those the VSOPs that I did in the last video, where they've got different. This is very straight down the line: vanilla, cinnamon, nutmeg. You do not lose that grape. That grape really comes through. The finish is super long. That is still going. That is really, really delicious. Face value, I don't know how the rest of these are going, but face value, I'm thinking straight away I would have a bottle of that. Oh, that's good. It's definitely got this lovely texture, this lovely oomph. I just want to clarify because I don't think I kind of mentioned that. I think that cinnamon, that nutmeggy kind of vibe is for me that oak aging. And you know, with rum, as I say, I just want to make this distinction. I don't really like longer aged rums for that, because that. But something with brandy, I don't know whether it's the grape compared to the sugar. I don't know what that is. But for some unknown reason, I do prefer longer aged cognacs. Now, it does get to a point, or longer aged brandies, I should say. It does get to a point where they go too far for me. You know, so that is the same as rum. But actually, whereas a 6, 7, 8-year-old rum is about my limits, you know, 10, 12, 15-year-old cognacs are pretty much on my wavelength. This is flipping delicious. Don't know what that is, but I would, at face value at the moment, I would have a bottle of this. Right. Second one. Again, let's come right in close in this corner. Ooh, this smells a lot lighter. It's still got this subtle hint of vanilla. It's still got this subtle hint of cinnamon to it. But you can tell instantly that it's a lot lighter style. This is fresh. This is zingy. There's a little bit of that oakiness coming off there, not too much at all. If this is the profile of the Spanish brandies, I'm not getting much. I get grapes. What I was going to say, I'm not getting much fruit in there, like different apricots and, you know, the phenomenon I'm getting off some with those strawberry kind of vibes and the red fruit vibes. I'm not getting too much of that so far out of these, the first two. These are, I'd say richer on the nose, but this one is dramatically lighter than the first one. Right, let's have a little taste. So, definitely lighter, hands down lighter. Comparing that for that, there was a whole gulf between those two. It's still got that very similar flavour profile. I dare say if I went further down the journey, I'd probably be able to pick those two coming from the same vineyard, the same brandy house, if you like. It's that similar style. It's not, you know, as I said, I've tasted other cognacs, other brands, and they follow a similar theme. Whether it's an apricotiness, whether it's a plumminess that's coming through, whether it's the red fruits that are coming through. This one at the moment is following that cinnamon, that vanilla there. It hasn't got the prickly heat of oak coming off that. It's just lighter, much easier. That is still flipping delicious. That's an all, not an all day, an everyday kind of sipper versus that one. That's, you know, that one's coming out when I want a treat at the moment. I would, at face value, I would probably compare this to something like the Remy XO. Probably the lightness of the Remy XO, but actually the lightness of a cognac, a VS cognac. I think that's where my head is going for that. If you understand, the Remy XO is a lot lighter. Yeah, that is delicious. Definitely preferring that one. Definitely preferring the first one. So I'm going to put these in order of ranking. So that's my favourite so far. And obviously that's second place because I've only tasted it. Right. Quick glug of water. Let's have a little smell of this one. Oh, it's a different nose. I think I might have to retract what I said there a second ago. This has almost got... This has almost got citrusy notes to it. But, well, to relate that, I've been doing quite a bit of work with my dried fruit. That's sort of the dried, when you open one of these, the lemons, the dried lemons, the dried limes. It's kind of got that citrusy-ness to it. That, or peel. Probably peel. That's probably the better way of saying it. On this one, I probably get more caramel than I do vanilla. I think I'm going out on a limb here. I think I'm getting actually a nuttiness to it. Almost reminded me of like an amaretto, so probably almond. Not quite on sort of a Disaronno amaretto levels, but it's almost there. There's a touch of that there. But I think they're the big flavours that I'm getting so far. Is that citrusy note, probably caramel. I don't get cinnamon, don't get vanilla, don't get oakiness really. But actually, on the taste, again, that is a similar profile to what I've tasted. You do lose, that citrusiness doesn't come out for me in there. I do now get cinnamon, I do now get vanilla. I do kind of, actually that's not too far removed of, bear with me, it's not too far removed from a profile of a spiced rum, except you can very clearly taste a grape base at that and not a rum base. And I'm not saying it's sweet, I'm not saying it's spiced or anything like that, but it's almost, that's the reminder, that's the trigger in my head. Bear in mind, I do drink a lot of spiced rum. I'm going to say this has got more body than the second one, the one I've just tried. Definitely more body there, but not as refined as that one. This is kind of interesting, actually. I wonder whether I'm going to be able to put these in order of their age and effectively the price. This has definitely got more body, more oomph, more grunt, more flavour, more layers than the one I've just tried. So my head is thinking that is a lot younger than what this is. I'm still enjoying the first one that I tried better than this. This is lovely. This is really good. I think I'd probably go, if I was picking up a bottle, I'd probably go Pierre Ferrand Ombre at the moment, or that Remy XO over this one. But neither of those compared to that one, if you understand what I'm saying. This is delicious, mine, don't get me wrong. And just quickly on the finish, that actually almondy note, that Disaronno note did come off on there just before I was picking up a glass of water. It's that long finish. So that, you know, that's it, not my favourite, definitely not. It's the first one I tasted is still my favourite. But I put that. Actually, do you know what? I'm going to revise that because right, so this is where I'm going. This for me, this one I've just tasted is definitely more aged than the second one. However, I wouldn't buy that one over the first one I tried. So therefore, I don't have a use case for that because that's much lighter and that's an everyday sipper. So actually, I'm going to put that one at the bottom, even though I think that's more aged than the second one I tried. If hopefully that makes sense. Right, let's dive into this one. I'm going to have a nudger. This is, I don't know whether this will translate on colour. I've tried to do this before and it doesn't really come off. This is almost cola in coloured. So this is going to be interesting. Wow, the aromas on this are, this is really rich, really deep, really plummy, subtle hint of, oh, is that vanilla? I was gonna say caramel, but actually it could, well, let's go caramelly vanilla on there, but definitely more plummy, soaked raisins, yeah, I can't even say it, soaked, why can't I say that? Soaked sultanas, plummy, pruny kind of vibe. But you're not mistaking grapes at the bottom of that. This is really rich and, oh, this is going to be delicious. Go on. Wow. That is stunning. Oh. Now, oh, that is really good. Oh. Right, notes that are coming off that. Exactly what I've just said on the aroma. There is this rich plumminess to it. Very rich plumminess to it. It's very easy to drink. It's got not too much oaky tanniny going on across my tongue. That just glides down. I would say I get more, right, this is what I'm getting to. I think I can pretty much pick the order or the ages of these. Because that is way, those flavours don't come around from longer aging. Those flavours come about because they've spent a lot of time in a barrel. So for me, right, just before I go any further, I think that's the, how do I say that? The Jaime #1. So that'll have the big 30 on the bottle. I think that one is, so the first one I tasted is the Hors 20. That one then has to be the 10 and that one has to be the 15. Has to be. Because there was just a clear gulf. They in age profiles, in oomph. That, right. Oh, I've got to make this distinguishment now between those two. Which one's my favourite? Right, so I'm going to have a little summing up here. The fourth one I tasted, I'm putting in second place for me. My favourite is that first one. So just very quickly, and I'll explain what these are in a second. Just very quickly, let's just have a look at the order of these. So my favourite is number 3, which is the 20, the Hors de Arche. This has to be number 4. Yeah, number 4, which is the Jaime. Yeah, that's right. Number 1 is the 10, which means that is the number 2, which is the 15. Right. So, my favourite is definitely that Hors de Arche. Apologies. Which is retailing at roughly £48. So what I've now done, that's delicious, and I wanted to kind of compare those two with some of the big guns that I've got behind me. Now, first off, what I'm going to say, the Jaime number 1. How do you say that? Write it phonetically in the comments below. Coming in at £93, so $110, $120, $115, give or take. I think that is well up there. Bearing in mind the Cavassier was what, 120? So there's not that to the VS. I'm talking about the XOs now. There wasn't that much difference between that and that. So for price, that's in with a good shout. If you're comparing this to your Hennessy XO, your Martell XO at 180, for me, I'm buying that all day long because literally half the price. And that is absolutely delicious. The curious one now comes from me for this Hors d'Arche. I'm getting better. I think that's how you say it. Because this is retailing roughly at about just under £50, 60 US dollars, which then brings all these into the mix. I've got the Martell VSOP. I've got the Remy, which I didn't because it's not a VSOP, but I couldn't put that in there. The Remy 1738, and I've got the Pierre Ferrand Ombre in there, all circa the same price. Now, cognacs, Spanish Brandy. Very different styles, very different. Now, I'm getting to that point now where I'm not going to say I'm going to be getting splinters and sitting on a fence, because I think price for price, what you have to look at here is the age of some of this. You know, as I say, don't think they're claiming that this is 20-year-olds because of the Solera and how they work, but this will have much older brandies in it than what they've got. So at that sort of value, that face value, I should say, then this is really punching at a decent, really good price compared to those. However, we're basing this all at around £50, 60 US dollars. I would have a bottle of that, no questions asked. But I think I'd also, I think the one for me, which I probably wouldn't have, even though it's delicious, but there's if I'm buying a bottle of each, there's 200 quid's worth of brandy there. The one that would probably miss out is the Remy 1738. I like the Martell VSOP enough for at £50 to have a different flavour profile. Remember, it's got that fruity, it's this one. It's got this like fruity note to it that doesn't have, like plums and apricots and that sort of vibe. And then the Pierre Ferrand Ombre, maybe a little bit more expensive than what it actually is. But it's definitely better than the VS. It's really good. It is really good. I think to sum this video up, look, I think at the lower price points, it's a very, right, how I'm going to sum this up, it's a very different flavour profile. With some of the French cognacs, you are getting a lot more fruit, whether it's red berries, whether it's peaches, whether it's apricots coming off there. With the Spanish Brandy, you're getting more cinnamon, more nutmeg, more vanilla, more caramel. You don't really get that fruity vibe. So that for me is the distinguishment between them. They're not like for like. They're not light and fresh and fruity like the French cognacs. But if you love that profile, if you love that sort of cinnamony, vanilla-y profile, these are right up your street. The one I would buy out of this whole range is that Hors d'Arge. I would quite happily sip on that. You know, I might actually sip on that more than... I would pick that up. I'm just going to say it now. I'm going to finish this video right here. I'm just going to say this. I would pick a bottle of that up more than I would a longer aged rum. Similar profile, grape at the base instead of sugar at the base. That's delicious.